First off, before we get to the world news, as you know, because I mentioned it yesterday, I am a fan of my alma mater, and they actually managed to beat the number one team in the country. So I am a proud Marquette alumni and all along those lines because they managed to knock off Kansas, and now we've got to take on the number two team in the country, that being Purdue. Who knows? Maybe we'll wind up being number one at the end of all of this and everything. But they were playing in what is called the Maui Invitational because of the Maui wildfires is actually being played in Honolulu. I wish that I had played basketball. And actually, I heard Dwayne Wade being interviewed, and even he said that he was a little bit jealous of those players and everything because even when I was in school and Doc Rivers was our star and everything, I don't remember them taking any trips to Honolulu and all along those lines. So it must be good being able to take these trips and go to exotic locales like that and have a good time while also playing the game that you love. And there are even some of our players that apparently are doing quite well because they were bragging on one of them being like a 3.996 or something like that, almost a 4.0 student, and all along those lines. They might have been the gentleman from New Zealand, or it might have been one of the other guards. I don't remember that part of the conversation, but it was good seeing that quite a few of them were doing good academically and not just athletically and all in that space. So they are known for wreaking havoc on teams, and they like to do what they call chaotic chaos or something along those lines. So it's basically just getting in people's grill all the time, kind of like Shaquille does with me and everything in that space. So it is very fun, and it was good to see that they were doing good and were constantly in people's in their grill and definitely causing all kinds of havoc because they are not the tallest team in the world. They are definitely one that is just ferocious. And Shaka Smart has definitely created a great culture in that environment that lets them believe in themselves and have what he calls connectivity, which means that they are like a family unit. And that is a good thing to see with a basketball team. As a matter of fact, Bill Walton and other commentators were talking about how they just seem to be having fun. And it's good to see basketball players having fun together and all along those lines. So that was one of my points of privilege. I will have a question for Shaquille that may be another point of privilege and all along those lines. But before getting to that, I will ask and bring up some of the things going on in the world. The Israel cabinet has approved a truce for the hostages in a deal with Hamas, and Palestinian prisoners are also to be freed. So that is something that is going on in the world. So that is a short-term ceasefire in Gaza. So we'll see how this plays out in the longer conflict there and all in that space. U.S. fighter jets have stricken an Iran-backed target in Iraq after repeated attacks on U.S. bases. So the U.S. forces carried out additional strikes against Iran-backed militia in Iraq, and that is something else that is going on as well. And former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak says that Israel built bunkers underneath the Shifa's hospital, and definitely that is something that folks are talking about, just like they are seeing that Gaza hospital footage is offering glimmers of hope for two of the hostages held by Hamas and all in that space. So that's just some of what we're hearing coming out of Israel. And Jeremy Hunt is hoping that his autumn statements will make a really big difference. Rishi Sunak hit the tax cut button as his luck runs out, and apparently UK's Jeremy Hunt is raising benefits and freezing alcohol duties in a major budget move in that particular part of the world. And North Korea is claiming that they have put a spy satellite into orbit, and analysts are saying that that could definitely make it more of a military force. And it'll be interesting to see if folks have reactions to that. And Myanmar hands China more than 31,000 telecom fraud suspects. And by the way, when I was at one of my other jobs yesterday, that old-fashioned hustle is out there again. So do be aware if you're in this part of the world or if you're in other parts of the world as well, that most police forces, I would guess most police forces in the world, do not ask for your Cash App and all along those lines, even if they are asking for donations. But a close friend of mine almost got taken because he was almost getting ready to send send a major amount of money, and particularly a major amount of money for him and everything. I'll just say it was in the thousands and leave it at that when somebody was calling asking for donations to the police force. But he was a wise cookie and all in that space. So he actually checked with both our local deputy and our local police and was informed that they never ask for cash apps and very seldom do they ask for money, and definitely not in large amounts like that and everything. So that is a worldwide scam that has been going on, and folks need to be aware of it. So I just made folks aware of it again. So if you're hearing people that are asking you for things that might sound suspicious, definitely double check and do not send that money out. It is probably a scam. And Arab and Muslim delegations coming back to the news are calling for an immediate Gaza ceasefire. So that is something else as is going on. And apparently China and India are walking opposite sides of what some people are saying is a fine line. And the Dutch election is wide open as voting begins and all in that space. So it'll be interesting to see how that particular election goes and which way it goes in that sense. Get to a couple of U.S. news items, and I'll bring up my panelists. I heard at least a couple of them come in and the door and all in that space. So we'll see what they've got to say about a number of things. Unfortunately, definitely it looks like violence is going on in the news again because 4 Las Vegas high school students are charged with murder as adults in a classmate's fatal beating. So I think I had mentioned that story before, and it looks like there have been 9 suspects arrested on murder charges in that high school beating death. And I know Lee New Roads and others, when we have brought up gun violence, have asked about knives and even fisticuffs because they can lead to murder as well. And a wife and a 21-year-old alleged lover were arrested in a love triangle murder of her husband in California. So it looks like that case will be one of those that'll be in the news in various ways and all in that space. And a pilot was killed in a crash in a shopping center parking lot in Plano, Texas. And that is something else that I was seeing in the news. And by the way, I was trying to bring some guests in that can talk about this and everything, but this is actually the 60th anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's assassination. So some people will be wondering on this day how security has changed and how things are done differently ever since that fateful day and all along those lines. I forgot that it was in November that particular fateful day had happened. Yours truly, if it was 60 years ago, was literally all of about 61 now. So I guess I was about 1 year old at that time. So don't have any memory of it in that sense, but I'm sure that my parents do and others that are of a older generation and all in that space. And a Georgia judge is refusing to revoke bond for Trump co-defendant Harrison Floyd. So it looks like they are not going to revoke his bond, and it looks like he's been put on notice. So they are declining to send his co-defendant in an election fraud case to jail over social media posts. So that is something else that we are seeing. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how all these cases play out as well. And there is a special election that is going on today as well. So Republican Celeste Malloy has won the Utah special election to replace U.S. Representative Chris Stewart. So a pro-Trump candidate, a moderate Democrat in Utah special election to fill that last seat in the U.S. House. And many now are seeing Nikki Haley as Trump's top challenger. And of course, she does face a lot of hurdles, and a lot of people are thinking that there is no way that she can win. But I'll be interested to see what Shaquille's got to say about that, and even what Travis has to say about that as well. And last but not least, the appeal court has waived free speech rights in Trump's subversion case. So there definitely that is going on to fight the fact that Trump is fighting gag orders, but shutting him up, some people are saying, could help the GOP in 2024 and all along those lines. We've got a number of people that are with us. It looks like Nick Palveda's here. Of course, Shaquille's here. Got Travis, and we got the whole Aussie crowd here with us and all along those lines. I did see that both Jacoby and Nick were here, and we'll see who else comes in as well to join in the conversation and everything in that space. I'm not going to make a whole show about it because sometimes, just like anybody else, I get tired of the race discussion and everything. But I did have a quick question for Shaquille and all along those lines in that same conversation, but just out of curiosity because it was on my mind yesterday and everything. So I'll just bring it up and then we can make a very short segment about it and everything. But just out of curiosity, Shaquille, because I was thinking about the boards that I used to belong to. And I've told you before that I belong to different boards, and some of those boards would hire me or appoint me, for lack of a better term, and everything because they knew that I would bring a certain perspective to the kid to those boards. Just like some people hire accountants or have board members that are accountants because they know that they have mathematical knowledge, and some people hire lawyers on the boards because they know that they have lawyers. I know that I was put on some boards because I have a certain connection to the African American community and to certain other communities as well. So if I was hearing you correctly, and please tell me I'm wrong, that if I was hearing you correctly, that is not a fair thing for a board to do, even though we do know that boards sometimes put people onto things. Like I had a friend that was Latin American and they knew that she would bring a Latin American perspective or that she would be able to address things, including the Latin media, that other people might not know. So I knew that I was put on these boards for these reasons. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you would have a problem with that. I'm just wanting to know that.
I know Travis wants to jump in. So, Travis, I'll let you answer it. I'll let you answer first. I'll just say and then I'll answer you after Travis has a go. But I'd like to have more information about me getting in your grill, like you said in your intro. But let's hear from Travis first, and then I'll respond.
So, as the minority in this screening here, as the only white guy here, why wasn't I invited onto that board? That's racist because you're discriminating against a person who's white at the moment. Why can't I give my white opinion as to what that board should be doing?
Well, to answer your question, there were a number of people from different communities, including in the European communities, that were put on those boards because they brought their perspective. I think there might have been some people that were Polish and German that were on those boards because they brought their perspective. But yeah, when they appointed me onto the city board of the Carolina Theater and they would want a city representative, yeah, they definitely reached out into minority communities because sometimes you, like as Toby said, and I'll bring him up as well, there are things that like about the media that I might know, including what certain black press is that other individuals might not know and everything. So that is part of the reason of them putting me on said boards. But like I said, people do things on different boards for different reasons.
So I'll answer your question for you. Look, I'll be a little bit more moderate than my right-wing nutty mate over there.
I was being sarcastic, right?
But look, when it comes to African Americans, maybe you guys are all the same. I don't think you are because I've met African Americans from different states and there's different personalities and different cultures there. But maybe it's true that you're all the same, but that doesn't apply to other cultures, right? You'd be very unique in that. Now, of course, there is a shared history that you all have, but there's a shared history that Indians have and Indian diaspora have. So, what I'm simply saying is, if a company or a board was to approach me and say, "Hey, we're a finance company, we trade the markets, and we actually would really like to have somebody that has a bit more knowledge and experience off the Australian region," and so therefore we'd like to bring you on board. Okay, cool, no problems, because they're actually after something very specific that I can bring to the table. But if they said to me, look, we've got too many white people on the board, and so we need you there because that's going to hit a diversity quota, and then you're going to bring some great big perspective. If I understand correctly, much of the complaint from yourself and Jatovi and many others is that I side too much with white people. What I mean, there's lots of poor white people too, right? So, but I'm a banker. I'm in economics. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm into low taxes, and so that apparently is not like the coloured way of doing things. I don't know why. I don't know why socialism has the sort of monopoly on issues to do with people of colour, but this is how it comes out. So, I don't think that it's good. And if I thought that I was being employed solely because of my skin color, with no reference to any other achievement or skill I've got, I would be like, and look, fair enough, you might take the job if it's a really high-paying job, but it's really insulting, I think. And this is the thing that you guys were talking about with Kamala Harris yesterday. You can't sit there and just act stunned that people are sitting there going, you know, she got the job because she's a black woman. And then Jacoby said yes, but, you know, I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure he'll come back on and nitpick and correct little tiny bits of the things that I'm paraphrasing him on. But he essentially said, well, you know, why isn't it about her achievements? Why isn't it that, you know, she got there because of her achievements? The reason why it's not that is because you said, I'm only going to give this job to a black woman, excluding everybody else from that pool of potential applicants. Well, and I don't think that's helpful. I actually don't think that helps to build a bridge. What I think that does is it makes us more divided as people when we're trying to rectify some of the wrongs of the past by doing it the other way now. I don't think that's an effective strategy, personally.
Well, the other funny thing, and just to let you and Travis know, and yes, I'm going to bring Shaquille and Jacoby on and everything, but the other funny thing about that is that when they were doing the board appointments, yeah, there are times, and I'm just using the Carolina Theater as an example, that they did feel that there was not enough representation of the Asian community because they did not think that there were people that would know enough about, say, Asian music, because the Carolina Theater
there's not enough representation of Muslims in the Catholic Church. So should the Catholic Church say, look, from now on, we're only going to employ Muslim pastors? I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Hold on. Shaq, you just actually contradicted your whole point. You said that if hold on, Shaq, hold on. You just said if a financial institution wanted to invest in the Australian market, they reached out to you, you'd say, okay. But if the board wanted to reach out into the black community, it is wrong for them to reach out in the black community. So basically, if you were talking about consistency, you just literally contradicted your own consistency. If somewhere wants to reach out into a community that they don't have information about, they should reach to that community and ask for help from that community, because you keep saying, well, the black community doesn't bring anything to the table. This Asian community doesn't bring anything to the table. Okay, well, I apologize. You didn't say that. But either way, you literally just said that if a financial institution wanted to reach out,
you're correct.
That's what you said. So then if you were consistent, then reaching out to the black community because you do not have information of that community, wanted more in that community, or wanted to invest in that community in particular areas, you do the same thing. So therefore, you just contradicted yourself and you're not consistent. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you shut up so quickly.
No, Nick, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Just to be clear, no, hang on. Just to be clear, I did say, but maybe I said it sloppily. If you're trying to do something specific, if you're a music
and
station,
that is what the board was doing. They're trying to do something specific, and you were just belittling the board trying to do something specific. It may not be in finance, it may not be in computer tech, but it is specific to what that board organization is trying to do. And if they want to reach into a community, regardless of that specific thing, you literally just said, if it was specific and it went to finance and it went to Australia, it is me. But if it is specific and if it is a board and if it is black, you don't like it. Oh my gosh, it's the worst thing in the world. So again, you contradicted yourself. We're done here with this conversation. Everything you say from this point on is moot because you're wrong.
Hey, just really quickly, Shaquille, hold on, I'm going to let you respond and everything. I was going to let you respond, and I've got to do other things and everything, which you all know I don't like to do. I wasn't going to let you respond, but I was going to give you another example, and I want to hear
you're going to add to it now. I can't even complete a sentence because you've got to now add something after I was interrupted.
No, go ahead, Shaquille.
Are you sure?
Yes.
To be clear, if a radio station or a theatre group is trying to do something specifically within the black community, of course they're going to get people from the black community or the Chinese community or whatever. That's not the point that I'm making. I'm saying to you that when skin color...
That's the point of the conversation.
Can you please shut up? just for a moment, and then you can come back and do your normal.
The point of the conversation is they wanted something specific and they were reaching into a particular community. You're changing the point to try and put it in a vacuum and a pigeonhole it so you can actually make yourself feel better. So again, everything you say from this point on is moot because you've contradicted yourself. Thank you.
Jacoby, if you don't want to listen to me, why don't you just leave? You don't have to be here. If you think everything I'm going to say is moot, then leave. Because there's others on here that want to hear what I've got to say.
Say what you got to say. Say what you got to say.
Oh, thank
say
you
what you got to say.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, good. Dickhead. Now, again, if they're trying to do something specific like what you're describing, fair enough. But if what they're trying to do is to put somebody onto a board based on skin color without skin color being a component of that role, it doesn't make sense to do that, whether it be skin color, ethnicity, gender, or sexuality. It doesn't make any sense. Sasha doesn't say to me, hey, Shaquille, I'd love to have a game of chess with you. I'm going to absolutely slaughter you, but I want to have a game of chess with you because it's been a while since I played a Fijian, Indian, British, Australian guy. Of course not. And if he did say that, I'd be like, what? He's going to play chess with me because, hey, you're interested in chess, Shaq? Okay, let's have a game. It just doesn't make sense. We see this at board levels with big companies. We see BlackRock trying to force big companies to have more so-called diversity on the board. But diversity for diversity's sake doesn't make sense. And it actually takes away from trailblazers in a particular industry. When somebody has worked really hard, they know that they're one of the first people there. I don't know of anybody else of my ethnicity running around Liechtenstein and Germany, Austria, Switzerland. That's some of the whitest places I've ever been to. And the hospitality with which they treat me is unsurpassed. I think I'm likely one of the only few fund managers there who isn't white. But that's not... They're not giving me the job in Switzerland. The investors aren't coming to me and say, hey, we're going to give you billions of dollars because you're black or you're brown. They're doing it because they think that I've got skills in that area. And it's just I want
to get to Sasha really quickly and everything. But before I get to Sasha, I did have a question for Travis and everything. Travis, the other thing that board did and everything, and I'm just using the board as an example to highlight the points and everything, is they did reach out to the younger folks. Like, I do not know enough about millennial life and everything. So they did want to have some younger voices on the board because, like I said, they might know things about technology and gaming. And Jacoby is actually not that far from my age and everything, but they might know things about that space that I didn't know. So they did reach out to like some people that were in, say, the 2030 set and everything. So that's part of the board conversation as well. So Travis, would that be problematic with you as well and everything? Because you mentioned the white comment of being a white gentleman on the board, but they did try to, there were certain target markets, as I said earlier, that they wanted, and one of them was an age demographics as well. So can you see why a board might want a different age demographic? I guess is the question I'm asking.
The biggest problem I have with this one, if let's say I turn around and went to someone, only white people can apply. That's racist, correct? Mm-hmm. Or if they turn around and say something like only men can apply, that would be sexist. So we're all in agreement with that, yes? So I'm going to use an example in Australia. The Australian military put out an ad for female-only applications. So to me, that is inherently sexist against men, especially when it comes to a defense force role where you don't exactly have to be the smartest person in the shed to actually get the job. Like, if you can lift heavy things, welcome to the army. Like, it's not exactly brain science to shoot a gun. You just point and pull the trigger. Yay, happy days. So when it comes to a board position, if their statement is we don't have a high enough quota in whatever category it is, you're excluding multitudes of people from who could be a better choice for that role, not because of their skin color, but because of their education levels, their knowledge, the area they work in. And for example, to get a younger person's perspective, if I was a part of that board, I'd be looking at someone who's got family members, like children themselves, or like, let's say they wanted people between the ages of 18 and 35. So if there's someone that meets the criteria you're after, that's in that bracket and they can do the job well, then great, hire them. I don't think race should be coming into something like that. Again, if there's someone, say, who's 55 and they've got a 18-year-old kid who's right smack bang in that, well, not just coming into that age bracket, if they've got a really good relationship with their kid, why wouldn't they be able to talk to the younger generations to find out what their issues are? So I think anytime you put one of these labels on people, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're just going to hurt the business as a whole because you're excluding potentially the best people in society for that role for a quota. And I don't, to me, that's just stupid. It doesn't affect me one way or the other person on a personal level, but you're just hurting your business. We see that with companies like Starbucks, where they started trying to do gender quotas and ethnicity quotas and all that sort of stuff. And you see the decline in their services because of they're not putting the best person in the job. They're just going purely based on race or sex or gender, stuff like that. So, like, whatever. And it again, like I said in last night's show, if that board, let's say it was a board of a university and that's the university I'd go to, I don't want anything to do with that. So I'd transfer myself out to a university that doesn't do that. So it's people got to take responsibility for themselves. And if it's something that they can't accept or they don't like, for example, a board decided to put gender quotas in there or minority quotas, and I didn't believe in that, I don't support that, I'll go to a university that doesn't do it. So it's as simple as that. Like, you got to be responsible for yourself, and you can't be sitting there blaming other people for your bad luck.
Fair enough answer. Before I get to you, Jacoby, Sasha had his hands up earlier.
Okay, in my life, I've been in several businesses, and well, at that time, the question of diversity was never a consideration for a board positions for anything. What I can see happening now, if you take a company in its development stage, let's say you have an inventor who have a very crucial, nice invention, very promising one. He put up the company, he put investors and so on, and everything is going through the roof, and company is very successful. Everybody's happy, and now the company is already becoming mid-sized company, or maybe even a big company, or mid-sized company. Okay. Now the board is building towards so-called diversity. So now it's a time to have a fruits, including financial, of the inventor, of the founder of the company, who worked very hard and had great idea to put something together. And now you bring diversity board who will reap of the fruits of the inventor and founder of the company. So they will have bonuses, they will have trips, the vacation trips, all the beauties of being benefits being on the corporate board. This is diversity and at its worst case scenario, and that's what happened in many, many companies in corporate America.
Before you answer, before I get to Jacoby and everything, I was going to let Jacoby respond, and even you, Shaquille, and everything. But I was on another show that is our network, and I learned something that I did not know and everything. And the person that does the show is African American, Reginald Kearney, and everything. But he pointed out something to me that's the flip side of that, which is that some people, and Travis, you might find this might interesting, there is a major company that is got a major leader that is African American, and there are some people that would probably be upset if they knew it, because definitely a lot of people, we all know that lumber is big. Travis, you work in the space of home development and everything. Lowe's is a big company here in the United States, right? Lowe's is a very big company, and there are I just found this out yesterday. I did not know this, but apparently the president of Lowe's is an African-American man and everything. And there are some people in the Deep South that would probably run away from Lowe's if they knew that, because it's not massively advertised that he is the president of Lowe's and everything. But the actual president of Lowe's is an African-American gentleman. And there are some people that are in the Deep South that might not go and get their lumber because they would find out that he was an African-American gentleman that runs that company and everything. So would that be problematic in Australia and everything?
Well, let Jacoby respond, because I want to say something to it. So.
Professor Jacoby.
So just to point out, everyone here has already agreed that, hey, we want to have diversity of thought. But the problem comes into play when people talk about, oh, well, this black person gets hired because of, well, why do we assume that black person isn't that diversity of thought that they brought in? because everybody here has said, well, okay, well, it's sexist if you do this, or it's racist inherently if you do this. But the example that Mark gave was about diversity of thought and reaching into a particular community for a specific thing. And then we turn it into some pigeonholed, hey, this idea is racist because we're only putting it up and hiring you because the color of your skin. That's untrue. It's because the experiences that we bring to the table, regardless what color we are, we bring different experiences and different views to the table based on those experiences. And yes, our identity is in the color of our skin because we cannot hide from that. So, for example, as pointed out earlier, Shaq, yes, you're Australian. And yes, there are different Australians than just the Australians that are color of your skin. And you have different experiences than what Travis has. So if you wanted to build a company to reach both the community that you can touch and that Travis can touch, having both of you in there would make sense in compared to just having one of you in there, because one would only reach one community. And that is the same thing with diversity of thought, coming up with different viewpoints, coming up with different ideas and different ways to look at things. Because again, and this is something that we have to admit to because it's a fact, not all one community is a monolith. But again, not everybody, our diverse experiences, as you even said, Shaq, we have a common experience as African Americans that the white individual or the Caucasian individuals don't share. So being able to speak to that, that's untrue.
Yeah. So white people were taken as slaves too. It just didn't happen as recently as it did to Africa.
Shaq, please, don't do that. Don't be disingenuous in your argument. Shaq, you're interrupting me. I don't even care what you have to say right now because you're already putting up a false narrative. Again, yeah, sure. White people were slaves. So were the Irish individuals. But you know what they had an advantage of? They had the advantage of being white. So therefore, they were seen as indentured servants and were able to get out of that slavery more so and quickly. You can laugh all you want, but that just shows how low your history knowledge is. So that shows the fact that, yes, the slavery in America affected disproportionately the African American community than it did the white community. So don't even act like it doesn't. We also have the studies and actually the facts and statistics that show even today, based on all the histrionics that we've had, even today, black people receive less in loans than actually white people. So we have all these facts. So laughing about it just shows your ignorance and how you do not want to have a serious discussion. So therefore, getting back to the point, if we want diversity of thought, just focusing on the fact that somebody is black and saying, well, I only hired you because you're black, that's the same problem from history. And that's not what people are asking for. The reason Mark was asked to go there is because he could provide some knowledge and information that others could not. He had the histrionics that they needed knowledge about, so he could offer more experience. So when these boards want to reach into particular communities, that's all they're doing. From asking Irish individuals to join a particular board to reach into the Irish community. We don't complain about that, but we complain when it's a black person, it's a Hispanic person, it's a gay person, or somebody seen in that minority community. So again, regardless what you say, we've already agreed that we want diversity of thought. I don't know why we can't agree that black people and white people don't think alike. Hispanic people and black people don't think alike. So if I have a black company that wants to reach out to the Hispanic community, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually place a Hispanic person on the board to help me gain knowledge and information about the cultures and actually to be able to even communicate with the people. So again, I don't know what we're arguing about when we already agree. But then when you talk about race, you're only thinking, oh, well, hired because you're black. No, that's not true.
To tell me just really quickly, and this is actually to Shaquille and everything, because I want to come back to something that Jovi just said, and we've talked about it before. I wasn't going to bring it up before, but I definitely want to hear both you, Travis, and Shaquille's thoughts around this. But you said that the questions come up is whether systematic racism exists or not. And I do know for a fact, because I've got friends in the banking industry, that there are times that certain individuals will go to a bank and ask for a loan. Now, I'm not saying that there can be other reasons, and they will get turned down. But then if they bring a counterpart of a more European background to that same bank with similar backgrounds and ask for and go up for the loans, that loan is given to them. So you can't say that those situations don't happen even in 2023. It's also some establishments where there's have some housing situations that have happened where people.
I'm saying that a disparity could be caused by all sorts of issues, which you sort of acknowledge there. So
I acknowledge that.
So when you just say, well, you can't say this, you can't say that. Well, yeah, I do say that. But I'll just come back to this issue, okay? Why is it? This is why I say when you say you're going to employ people who are black, or you say you're going to employ people from the LGBTQ community or whatever community you think has been marginalised, okay, you can't then expect people to not think that person was an affirmative action hire. Okay,
but yet you're okay with them hiring you because you're Australian. I get it. Okay, that makes sense.
Can you just button up for a minute?
You interrupted Mark, so I just felt like doing the same.
Mark had finished.
Yeah.
Actually,
okay. Well, I'll give the floor back to Mark to keep Jatovia happy. Mark,
no, go ahead, Shaquille. I was asking for your answer.
Does anyone else get?
That's what I thought. I thought you were asking for my answer, but apparently, according to Jatovia, I cut you off. So please continue, Mark.
No, I was done. So Shaquille, and I do want to hear from you, Nick. You're the boss of the network. So, but Shaquille.
Excellent. So one of the issues that I see, and this is also when it comes to tax rates and everything else, right? You have governments sit there and say, "Hey, we really want people to be successful. You know, we've got immigrants here. They've come in. They've become really successful. That's fantastic." But there comes a point where you become too successful. All of a sudden, you get attacked for taking advantage of everybody. It's the same thing when it comes to these race relations and minority communities. If a minority person doesn't adhere to the left-wing political philosophy, look at how brutally they get attacked. They get attacked for being race traitors. They get attacked for being sellouts. They get attacked for being white on the inside. Larry Elder gets told by white newspaper that he's the black face of white supremacy when he runs to be the governor of California. And more recently here in Australia, we had the referendum on The Voice, and the two most vocal people that were advocates of the No campaign were Aboriginals. One was a woman called Jacinta Price. Her and her family got death threats. The other one is a guy called Warren Mundine, who actually comes from one of the more well-known families in this country. And the death threats that he was getting was so bad, it actually broke my heart. I watched an interview with him recently where he actually said that he had considered and actually tried to end it. What a loss to our country. But that's the sort of viciousness that happens. And I don't generally see people on the right, people who are black on the right, showing that kind of viciousness towards people who are black or of minorities on the left. I don't see gay people who are on the right doing that sort of thing to people on the left. Now, Jatovia will sure come back and tell me all the terrible things about right-wingers in America, but that hasn't been my experience in the United States. I've been to 27 of your states. I have not had that experience myself. I haven't observed it. And I've been...
But you don't live here.
I don't
Yeah, Shaq. And then on top of that, your experience is different. The fact of the matter is white supremacists have caused the most mass shootings out of anybody. So therefore, there you go.
Didn't you just have a go at me for cutting Mark off? The last thing I'm just going to say in relation to this issue, that you changed the goalpost when you were talking about only black people have that history. And then later on you said in America. Well, I'm just going to just disabuse you of a couple of things. Most white people who live in the United States and Australia, for that matter, came to our countries after either World War I or World War II. Now, whilst most of them didn't come from situations quite as brutal as slavery, some of them, I would argue, came from situations worse if they were fleeing Nazis, for example. So the idea that all white people have some inherent privilege that has enabled them to overcome the obstacles that every other race throughout history has gone through is just it's a crutch. It's an excuse for why people are not performing as well as they should. Okay, it's not all because of race. Some might be, but not all of it.
You're showing your lack of understanding of what happened in the history, because even, for example, take redlining, which happened, that continues to happen. That is something that didn't happen based on slavery. That happened based on race, when they labeled these neighborhoods and everything else, and that was all black neighborhoods and so on and so forth. There's just a tremendous amount of history that you're just glossing over. So Shaq, again, don't try and say that the white experience was just as, it wasn't as bad. Well, sometimes, yeah, come on, Shaq. You know for a fact that the black experience in America was a travesty. It was a atrocious event, and it continues today. And your argument, and you don't even live here. So don't even tell me that you can tell me the Black American experience. You can't say that. If somebody, and this goes back to our argument at the very beginning. If somebody were to hire, if somebody on a board wanted to hire somebody to talk about the Black experience in America, they're not going to look for Shaquille. They're going to look more so for Mark, which again isn't a diversity because he's Black. It's a fact because he knows he has information on it. And the fact that he is Black, he brings an extra set of information that you do not know. So
the point that you're making, I already conceded it quite a while ago. Now, I just want to address this. Shaq doesn't live here. Guys, you have set up a program called World Edition. You know absolutely bugger all about anyone else's country except for your own. So if you're going to invite Australia to your show to ask them to make comments about issues that you're experiencing in the United States that are similar to the issues that we experience somewhere else, what is the point of then saying, well, you don't live here, you don't know, blah, blah. What's the point of doing that?
The point is because you are trying to make an argument that the white experience in America and the Black experience in America wasn't the same. It was roughly about the same. You made that argument. Nobody else made that argument. So to correct you in that argument, I had more information than you.
Something that I didn't say. Okay, all I said to you is that it's not unique to Black people, and I was talking about globally the issue of slavery. Many cultures, many ethnicities have been through similar circumstances. That's all I said.
I
noticed when I talk about some things that's gone on that the British did to my family, every time I bring it up, you burst out laughing like it's the funniest thing you've ever heard. But if I was burst out laughing when you say something about slavery, the heresy of it, how could I?
We actually have
you want to be the bleeding heart for everybody that is
you. I'm listening. Shaq is done.
We have 6 other people on the show, so maybe we should give them some time.
Yes, I was getting to Kim because Kim was getting to bring up a point. I'm getting to you. Sasha's already spoken. I definitely want to get to Rick as well. Kim?
Go ahead. Take Sasha up.
So Sasha's already spoken. The Rick or Nick?
All right, I just woke up, so I missed most of the discussion, but I want to say that the U.S. over the next 20, 30 years will go from
a
majority white country to a plurality white country. It'll become a minority majority, and I feel that, like, if you're a skilled person, you don't have to worry about, like white people who don't suck don't have to worry about being, shielding themselves from other people. It's people like white supremacists are never actually superior. They're people who feel threatened because they kind of stink. They're bad at stuff, and they use the tools at their disposal to try to hold on to their privilege. And and they get more and more tools, new tools, social media, for instance, to try to maintain their privilege. And there's a certain desperation in America from white people who aren't good at stuff.
Just really quickly, I did want to hear from Travis as well. By the way, I've got to tease you, Toby. I teased you earlier, Shaquille. I've been watching you. You've been doing this whole cooking thing and everything. So I know it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. Are you doing the whole Mr. Mom thing and all along those lines? Because I'm going like, he must be preparing Thanksgiving dinner because I'm seeing that literally you are cooking as we're doing the show. So I thought it was a cooking show there for a minute and everything. So I do know that you got to get your kids prepared and everything.
Australia did have Thanksgiving.
He has talents, Mark. He actually has talents. But I would like to
Wait,
represent.
wait. If we had Thanksgiving here, we wouldn't have it at this time of the year, right? We would have it because this is now us going into our summer. So it wouldn't be this time of the year that we'd have our Thanksgiving.
It's too hot.
Okay.
Like in Perth today, it was
Our climate's the
30,
opposite of yours.
40 degrees.
Yeah. Nick,
Okay. Can I represent my ancestry, which is actually I'm Hispanic, believe it or not.
Royalty.
Royalty, right? My great grandmother was Eleanor of Castile, and my great grandfather was Edward I Plantagenet, who were the Plantagenet kings of England. So Edward I, II, III are actually my great grandfather, and so is Robert the Bruce and Hugh Capet, King of France. So I'm actually a direct descendant of the King of France, the King of Portugal, Alfonso I, the Queen of Spain, back then it was Castile and Leon, and also the King of England, which were the Plantagenet family. Well, what we found out is Plantagenets ran into problems. It was called the Tudor family. And in the War of the Roses, we lost. And then there was another war, which called the War in Dunbar. We lost that one too. And that's where my ancestor Ennis was transported to British America, they called it, in 1650 as an indentured servant. His choice was, because they didn't like royals in England, Oliver Cromwell was beheading them. So my royal ancestor had a choice. Either go to the United States, back then it was British America, as an indentured servant, which he served for 7 years, or be beheaded. So he came here, had kids, had grandkids, blah, blah, blah. Eventually I came down the pipe.
So am I hearing you correctly that you now want affirmative action?
Royals are underrepresented. We are underrepresented in the United States of America. We are discriminated against. And when Biden said, I'm going to appoint a Supreme Court justice, it's got to be a black woman, he said it should be somebody with royal blood, and then I would vote for him. But he didn't, and so I'm out. So
you now should have affirmative action for your Spanish side, and you should have reparations from England,
Absolutely.
and reparations from the United States, right? That you'd be entitled to all of those.
Absolutely.
You should hang out with Elizabeth Warren.
Totally
She's on your side.
destroyed thanks to Oliver Cromwell. I'm totally destroyed because of Oliver Cromwell, which happened back in 1650. And we are underrepresented. When was the last time a board said we're going to look around to appoint somebody and it's going to be somebody with royal blood? They never do it. You know,
I don't know about that, but you would get appointed to the board possibly because of your legal background and because of some of your financial background as well. Because I do know that Lee Newton Rhodes is in the background, and I know that there have been people that have been appointed to the board because they brought certain skill sets to the board as well. So I do know that we sometimes
But why not get
other boards because they would want.
Why not get a black transgender lawyer?
What is wrong with royals? Why do you guys are against royals? You beheaded us back in the 1650s. You chase royals around and you keep killing them. You killed off my cousin.
Sorry, Nick, aren't you formerly a Republican?
Pardon?
She's formerly a Republican, but I've got a quick question to ask Travis. Hey, Travis, I got a quick question to ask you, Travis.
Telling us about
I got a quick question to ask Travis.
Discrimination against people with royal blood. I just don't understand why.
No, I got your question, but I got a more important question because it is almost Thanksgiving and everything. So I got a quick question to ask you, Travis. Travis, because I know some of the backgrounds that you have because you showed them to me earlier and everything. I just want to know, this is my attempt at a truce and everything, because we got that going on with Hamas. I'm about to attempt a truce here on Pod TV and everything. So this is my question for you, Travis, is can we get together with Travis? Yeah, can we get together with Travis? Can I get together with you and get Shaquille, because Shaquille has got access to planes and everything. I know that. So can we get you and Shaquille together on one of the planes that he has access to and fly you to Durham tomorrow to be at Jatovi's Thanksgiving dinner and everything? Hey, I'm coming up with a truth idea and everything. So it's Thanksgiving, Jatovi is preparing Thanksgiving dinner, and I know that you can get access. You got kids? You saw that Jatovi's got one. You saw he's actually got two, but I think you've got kids, so y'all can bring the kids as well. So what do you think? This is my truth attempt.
There's two problems with that. The last time I checked, it's a 22-hour flight to America from Perth.
It's quicker on a private plane. That's what he's referring to.
Okay, there we go. Second one is I don't have a passport. It expired like 12 months ago. I've just been too lazy to get it renewed. I've had too much other shit going on. Sorry.
That's a good way not to travel. My husband would always forget to do his, so he didn't have to go anywhere for work. Because they would always, the minute they get something, they would send him somewhere. So one day he was just like, my passport expired.
Tell me, what did you like about
This is
my
what
talk?
they do
I mean,
to
I
you,
saw
though.
the traffic
They go,
can't do it, but I
"That's
thought
okay.
I
We'll go
had
to
a great
Washington
idea.
and
They can come to Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow.
I mean, the more the merrier. We got a ton of food.
Oh,
You're
so Travis,
the
go
food to the
to
shack.
I'm not
The
eating. I'm not eating,
Yeah,
Dave.
I
If
think
I
Rick
the
has
next time I
something
go down to
intelligent
south, southern states of America, I love your hospitality, but I'm not eating those bloody, what are they, ginnerings or whatever they are. That's it's foul smelling.
Oh,
Just got blood in it.
chitlins.
Yeah, I'm not eating those. Just
I think Rick has something intelligent to say,
Rick,
which is
please.
Yeah, Rick, go for
which
it.
is doesn't correlate with most of our audience.
So my screens are freezing, but we have 2 Australians on the show, so we can solve a huge controversy that's been going on for decades. I believe the toilets in Australia flush the same way they flush in the Northern Hemisphere, that it depends on the design of the bowl and not the rotation of the Earth, because you need a toilet hundreds of miles in diameter for the Earth's rotation to affect which way the water goes down.
I agree. I concur.
Well, I tried this. I actually tried this just in a sink, right? And filling. Oh, and another time I tried it with filling just a container to see. And the problem was that by the time I got back to Australia, I forgot which way it was going in America. So I would like to weigh in on it, but I'll tell you what I'll do. Before I come back to the States in February, I will record some, not a toilet flushing, but say I'll put some water in a container and I'll record it. Then I'll take the container with me to the US. And when customs asks what I'm doing, I'll have to try and explain it to them. And then I'll do the same experiment over there in the States to see what happens.
So our thing
really quickly
goes clockwise.
Science. Thank you.
Yeah, so our things go clockwise, by
I
the
was
way.
not, as I said earlier, and by the way, the in the grill remark was a fun attempt because that's what my team does. They stay literally in your shirt the whole game, and we do have a very difficult game against Purdue. And Nick, in case you didn't notice, we did not take down the number 1 team. I mentioned that at the beginning and everything. Now we got to go play the number 2 team, but they were constantly in the grill, and I think they won by like 16 to 17 points. So at 5 o'clock, much more reasonable hour.
So you just made mention of staying in the shirt. Can we hear more about Rick Rossner's Naked at Night?
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Come on, Rick. I'm giving you the chance to plug yourself.
Do you take your clothes off? Do you get on the pole? Do you like swing around a little bit? Do a bit of
Sounds like a
Miley
show.
Cyrus on the rocking ball?
I've been a nude art model and a stripper for much of my life. You know, now to hire me as a stripper would be I was never great. Now I'm especially terrible because you don't want to see a 63-year-old guy whose butt has gone away with no clothes on. But I do take my shirt off on the show because I'm arguing with my conservative artist friend Lance, a very Trumpy guy, and I've been his art model for 30, 40 years. And, you know, I posed naked for him for that long, and we always get in political arguments because I'm very liberal. He's very conservative. And I thought it was funny and stupid that, you know, a naked guy would be having a political argument. So I turned it into
I love producing your show just like I love producing a lot of the other shows. But if I'm hearing you correctly, I don't produce Travis's show. But from what Shaquille has told me, the Naked at Night on Pod TV is basically Edge Radio.
That's
dope. Minus the naked part. From what I've been told from Kim, it's conservatives against liberals.
I think that we could do a dual broadcast perhaps and get Rick Rossner's some Australian audience. But what I will say to you, Rick, is your conservative friend has obviously been very clever because finally he's got a lefty to steal the shirt off his back instead of the other way around. I love it. I'm not sure what my friend over there, Travis, is doing, but
it's true. And he usually beats me in the arguments because he's a visual artist and he listens to 10 hours of conservative podcasts every day.
So I'm glad you finished that sentence.
Well informed.
Rick, I was just going to say, I'm glad you finished that sentence because you started off, he usually beats me. And we're talking about Naked at Night. How kinky is this show sometimes?
It'll fit right in that edge.
It gets a little, you know, we say stuff that you isn't said on the other Pod TV shows.
It's fun.
Okay,
So
we are
it's-
definitely, Travis, we are definitely
Sorry.
going to start rebroadcasting, do a dual broadcast
Oh,
with,
hell yeah. Hell
with
yeah.
Pod TV into Australia for your show.
Hey, Shaq, every single time someone proves a point or they start talking over each other, we should have a bell that the host does. And every time the bell gets hit, someone's got to take an item of clothing off. I think it would do really well on OnlyFans.
Look, I know you want to see me naked, Travis, but it ain't going to happen.
No, I already have. It's fine.
Strip politics, right?
Hold
Strip
on a
politics,
second.
not strip poker.
Travis,
Strip
hold on a
politics.
second. Jacoby, are you still there?
Great
Because
debate.
Jacoby, I know that you know about OnlyFans and you've actually got some friends
Yes.
on Twitch that are into the OnlyFans. So what do you think of Travis's idea of a bell and an OnlyFans kind of deal for Pod TV? Because I know that you've got some connections to the video game market as well as OnlyFans.
What you talking about? I'm innocent. I'm only Christian.
Criminal lies.
Excuse me.
So I have to say, so just for the US viewers, because Australia's very, very they don't like political shows if it's not controlled by the mainstream media in Australia. So we get censored a lot. And so one of the only platforms that would allow us to stream because Edge Radio is 24 hours a day, it doesn't stop. If you jumped on there now, you'd be listening to awesome music, some replays of some of our shows. So the only streaming services that was actually free to use when we first set up was actually OnlyFans. That was the only one that would allow us to embed the video into our website. So Edge Radio actually does have an OnlyFans account. So I keep joking that we need to get a webcam set up for our feet because, you know, people have foot fetishes and all that sort of shit. So
Wait a second. Does Derek know this?
yes, I announced it when he was on the show.
So Derek and I have been on OnlyFans now, have we?
No, we don't stream to it now because
You
we
don't
got
stream,
Radio
okay.
Code. But yeah,
All right.
no, we do have an account, but we don't stream onto OnlyFans.
Well,
just for
Travis,
you.
you don't know this because sometimes we get into these arguments and sometimes Shaquille and Jacoby go back and forth. But Jacoby's other interest is esports. And so maybe you and him need to get together because he can actually probably create that feed for you.
I think we
master
should
at
stay
video
with
games.
I think we should stay with the OnlyFans thing and speak to the co-founders of this network, Kim and Nick. Why doesn't Pod TV have an OnlyFans? Sasha and I can
Because
be on there.
they
It's brilliant.
love talking about going backwards and forwards and the intercourse between the different hosts. You know, that would be a great segue into OnlyFans.
Come on, Sasha. Let's get this thing on. Let's get this. I can open them eyes.
It's political
Okay,
foreplay, baby. Come on now.
Just want to make a note. Rick's first piece of artwork is available for auction. So we'll have to do a special show to auction off the first piece of work. Thank you, Rick.
So I want to say that it's been
naked work and
suggested
everything along those lines and everything in that space.
It's been suggested that I do an OnlyFans for people who have a kink for terrible, hideous feet.
Yeah, those feet are horrible. You told me we've got to a
My
new
wife
level.
is
Like I'm on Travis's show.
We've got to a new level.
I think this is a first on the network.
because you have seen Rick's feet, Jacoby. So I think the cooking is done.
So on a,
Oh,
on a
this
serious-
whole conversation, I was stuck on trying to find Edge Radio on OnlyFans. I want to see Travis naked.
so
No,
on
you
a
need to go
slightly-
Pornhub for that one.
On a slightly buzzkill serious note, I just want to let everyone know we are experiencing
you're that
some pretty extreme bushfires in Australia at the moment, and we'll be setting up a fundraiser which we'll put out on our networks for anybody who's interested. We do support you guys when you guys have your fires, so it'd be lovely if any of you want to contribute.
Why do we care about your stupid fires in
Oh,
Australia?
well, we care about you.
I mean,
Can I jump? Sorry, there's more to that story that you guys should.
First of
Well,
all,
wait, I won't go into
There's-
the rest of it right now, Travis.
Hang on, guys.
Save the rest of it for another
Yeah,
show.
hold on. Let's hear more to the story.
Travis,
from
we'll
Travis.
save the rest of that for another show.
Kangaroos.
But
I mean, you know,
right now, I'll just leave it at that right
there's
now.
nothing in Australia. It's all desert. It's desert.
No, but
and
Travis,
kangaroos.
you wanted to go into some more about the story around the wildfires.
Yeah, but
Just real quick before you go into that serious part, I was going to say that fire is caused by Travis's balls.
No, I don't shave my nuts yet.
I just don't see wildfires in Australia. I don't think they
Oh,
exist.
we get them. Oh, they're fatal in
Yeah,
Australia.
what
They're
burns?
bad.
But you know what, Travis? I
nothing
started
to
reading
burn
up
me.
what happened there.
I've been to
I've been
Australia.
warned about it. Why
There's
wasn't there
nothing there.
backburning? What happened to you? Yeah,
you
we'll
can blame
save
the
this for
drains
another
for
show.
that.
But what
Yeah.
was this
We can go over
mishandled?
because the next
by-
show is
by
not
the
actually till one, which
AFES?
is Rick.
So-
I mean, not Rick, Sasha, Modern Investment.
Just to give them a bit of an idea, a background on it, we get fires every year. Australia, to put into perspective, gum trees, their seeds won't germinate unless you set them on fire. We got things called, they changed the name because we used to call them black boys. I think they're called bush grass or something
They're
now.
called grass trees now.
Grass trees. Anyway, so what it is, they will actually die unless you set them on fire every couple of years. So the entire ecosystem in Australia is actually designed to burn. Like, it's just Australia. Anyway, so what happens is a lot of these fires are actually uncontrollable. Gum trees just naturally self-explode, and that's not a joke either. They get hot enough, all the saps in them just ignite themselves. They're extremely volatile. They're designed to burn. So the fires in
weapon.
I've heard that there's a heap of gum trees in California, and that's apparently there's the gum trees that causes the fires that happen over in California. But anyway, I don't know how accurate that is. So what's happened is a friend of mine has actually lost his house because of the fire, like today. So it's a lot of shit does burn in Australia. We had one fire called Ash
We'll just
Wednesday.
clarify who that person is actually, if you want to. It's one of the people involved in Edge. So those of you that have come onto Edge, it's actually one of the people that are involved in it. But as I said, we'll let you guys know the information as we go. We're at the hour. But yeah, it is something that's hard, and it's one of those issues where it's been mismanaged because of people saying you can't backburn, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, yeah, you can, because that's what Australia's designed to do. So
does America have backburning the same as we do in Australia?
Well, in some places, yes.
Yeah,
but they've
in
started to have
California,
similar
Rick,
issues
they
where the
have
climate
backburning in
change
California?
crazy starts suggesting that you shouldn't do it. Well,
Okay, so
as you know, you get a lot of regeneration and new plants get to germinate after something's been burned. So if you don't backburn and the thing catches on fire, then you just have these uncontrollable issues like they had in California a couple of years ago, and like we had in Sydney last year. We had one of the worst bushfires across Sydney or across the East Coast that we've ever seen. So and then they go, climate change caused it. No, it was bad management that caused it.
So put it into perspective how nasty these fires can get. They're down near Perth. There's used to be a town called Yalu. There was about 15,000 population on it. Yalu doesn't exist because a fire burnt the entire town to the ground. Like it's just gone. Like it, hundreds of years of history. Like you got to remember, Australia's only like 200 something years old. So it's one of the original towns that were created near Perth, and everything's gone. It's just bushland now. So the fires in Australia are really nasty. They are fatal. Some of the worst catastrophes we've ever had has been caused by fires, especially Ash Wednesday was a really, really big one as well. So, yeah.
Let's go to Rick before we get off the air because we're at the hour.
All right, I can tell you about fires in California. California has creosote bushes, which are like just little explosive torches. We have crazy people who like to set fires. We have people building towns made of houses that are not fire safe in places that towns shouldn't be built. And then we have irresponsible power companies who don't update their power poles and cables, so they come loose in the winds and start fires. So it's a combination of things.
And Rick, it's one of the rare times that you'll hear me advocate for more government regulation. But what PG&E, I think it's called, isn't it? You're the big power company over there. What they've done and the wound they've inflicted upon California is absolutely reprehensible. And who's left footing the bill? The taxpayer of California. That's just not on. Is it PG&E? Is that who it is? Pacific Gas and Electric? Is it PG&E?
Yeah, PG&E. I mean, there's several. There's Edison, there's PG&E. The power company was largely responsible for Maui burning. Right. They were inept there in Hawaii and didn't turn off the power when the winds got high and the sparking power lines burnt down the island.
Wasn't it also the power company that caused the issue in Texas as well? Where they had to cycle the power because there was the ice storm that created it, and they had to cycle the power where particular people were dying because of that. It was either that or there was also.
I think a bunch of people froze to death in Texas because they were without power. Yeah, power companies aren't held to account sufficiently.
And the power grid needs to be upgraded, and that's one of the big pushes that needs to have to
This
go.
is something- This is something where Travis comes in and refers to me, like you said yesterday, that I come across to him and to people on Edge as being the lefty, because I will say radical things like some of those public utilities. I do believe that they should be in private hands, but they should have these more private-public partnerships, and I think the tax rates on those sorts of companies should be a lot higher. And one of the reasons for that is because they've got nowhere else to go.
Hey,
So
Shaq,
it would make sense that mining operations, oil extraction, all those sorts of things are taxed at a much higher rate so that we can offset and reduce the taxes that people pay on their income, that companies pay, etc. And if you look at the Middle East, that's what they do. But everyone says, the Middle East has a 0% tax rate. Not quite. The tax rate on oil extracted out of the ground is extremely high. So when it comes to those sorts of things, I think that there should be a little bit more government intervention. Not too much, not enough to crush competition, but there needs to be certain standards that are going to be adhered to, and I think government needs to play a role in that.
So I'm going to put you in touch with North Carolina Warren, because North Carolina Warren actually is one of those organizations here that are trying to do regulations around energy and everything. And actually,
let Travis respond, because my comments were
you're about to call me a socialist on this one. I personally think utilities.
Are you going to outleft me? Are you going to outleft me?
Hell yeah. Utilities like drinking water, power, and sewerage should be totally in the hands of the government, so there's no price gouging.
I would actually argue that price gouging would actually be more likely to occur if it was wholly owned by government, like what you've got with Western Power Synergy in Western Australia, as opposed to the competition that you see on the East Coast. But having said that, what we also know in Australia, that they're talking about, well, we've got to get rid of coal because we've got to keep the climate crazies happy. And they're actually predicting, they're actually saying, no problems. As of 2024 onwards, get ready for rolling blackouts. What?
Well, they've already been gas and houses.
The thing that you're proposing isn't going to work because you don't have the infrastructure to replace coal yet. Fine if you want to try and transition to renewable energy, but until you're ready to transition to it, you don't tell 15 million people across the 3 states of the east coast of Australia to get ready for rolling blackout. What the hell's wrong with you people? That's just crazy.
I mean, I agree with Travis on those public utilities that everybody has to use. Yes, it can cut down on price gouging. The problem that we run into in the States are those non-compete where, the government will get one company to run that public utility. Then that one company doesn't have to compete with anybody else in terms of keeping that contract. And then that company drives the price up. And we've run into that not only in the public utility space, but also in the spaces of, military equipment to even just the small things of buying a generator. So I completely agree that it should be that a public utility should be government run, just like a public school or a public library.
But okay, so to Sophie then, if that's your view, let me ask you this. If something's government run and I form a corporation because I believe that I can deliver the same service at a cheaper price, should the government be able to exclude my entrance into that market? If the government believes that they're there, I know this is a much more complicated issue than what you've just said there. But if the government, if one of the reasons for government to be there is to prevent price gouging, should they then be able to stop private enterprise from competing with them and actually delivering something at a cheaper price or a better quality?
I don't think they should stop any business. However, I do think that same company should be up for bid for the contract for the government. For example, with Tesla taking the EV market where they're going to try and build the infrastructure out. Well, if Rivian had a better infrastructure setup, I think Rivian should be able to bid for that government contract. But right now it's now Tesla has this contract bid for however long they want to have it. And that I think is a problem, which creates that issue of price gouging.
Well, this is why I have such a problem with these, where companies are getting government contracts. I'm saying this goes away from the free market, but also it goes away from free market competition when you look at things like, for example, garbage bin collection, right? This is run in most of America. This is run by your local governments. Here we call them councils. Right. But if you've got a holiday house, you still have to pay the same amount of money to have your bin emptied each week. Why shouldn't you be able to opt out of that? Or why shouldn't you be able to pay a separate company to collect rubbish?
But I don't think that everything should be up for sale. And that's what you're going towards. For example, our healthcare in the States, everything about our healthcare is up for sale. So a lot of people get denied based on the insurance coverage that they can have. And then we get to a point where those monopolies, those bigger insurance companies, push the smaller insurance companies in terms of that competition that you're looking for out of the market. And even worse, hospitals, because everything's up for sale, hospitals don't even have the same pricing from one hospital to the other. Therefore, if you go to a general hospital, then that general could be more expensive than that private hospital down the street that does the same exact thing, or even that general hospital for example, like we have, it used to be Durham Regional, but Duke Regional and Duke Hospital. Both of them do the same thing. Both of them both of them do similar things in terms of an emergency situation. Both of them have different pricings depending on if you go to which hospital you go to. So if I have a heart attack, then I go to Regional, it's cheaper. But if I go to Duke, it's more expensive, which it shouldn't be. But that's all because of hold on. It's in the same general. It's in the same general state. But that puts everything up for sale. So if you had a government entity on a public health issue, on a public like electricity, for example, if we had one single entity covering that, and there's one contract, it's going to be cheaper for everybody because you have a larger pool.
I don't agree. Just a second. I don't agree with you that if there was one contract, it would be cheaper for everybody, because in other places that we've looked at, that hasn't always been the case. And the thing with the healthcare system in the United States is, I honestly think that if I was American, I would be so embarrassed to tell the world what my healthcare system is. And I'm not trying to pick on your country. You know how much I love the United States. But this has got to be the biggest thorn in my eyes in America's side, that you actually have one of the best healthcare systems in the world that people from all over the world will actually go to. I go because I've got severe problems with my teeth. I go to dentists in the United States because they are the best I can find in the world. But if you can afford it, it's fantastic. If you can't, go suffer. That is such a terrible system. However, when I hear Americans talk about wanting to change that system, I don't think it would work for you guys to change the system into what you have in the UK or in most of Europe. I don't think it would work for you to introduce a Canadian-style way of doing it. And I certainly think that when they look at Australia, we've got a good healthcare system. But once again, there's a lot of people who don't have private health here who still get free government-paid-for healthcare, but there's extremely long waiting lists in order to get in 2 years sometimes for things. And oftentimes people die while they're waiting. So I think that you would need to look at a different type of system. And I think the system that is most likely to, the system that's most likely to work for the United States is if they followed the Swiss-based system. Everybody must have private health. If you can't afford it, the government pays for it. But the government also controls, through a clearinghouse, what happens with the insurance company, so that they can't say, well, you went to the wrong hospital, so we're not going to cover you. So I think having a little bit more government regulation of those insurance companies and more competition would actually benefit the US far more than the universal healthcare system would. Again,
we definitely have one of the, and everybody understands that. I mean, out of all the nations in the world, we don't even make the top 10 list. So we have, yes, one of the best if you can afford it. But again, you're talking about people dying in Australia waiting for their appointment. Well, we have people dying in emergency rooms because they're just waiting to be seen. So there's a big difference in extreme in that.
We've got that issue as well with ramping, ambulance ramping.
And the comparison is completely different. We have, if you have one person die, just like mass shootings, you have one person die. We have a mass shooting every day. We have at least 3 every day. So the comparison wise, our emergency or our healthcare system is bad and needs to be reformed. And yes, it would be great. The idea that you're talking about, the Swiss system, even the Australian system is actually better than what we have. The Canadian system is better than what we have. It's just that we have to figure a way to make what we have, because the insurance companies are not just going to let it go. And this goes back to the point about a public utility system. that public utility system being free or being part of the run by the government and or at least managed by that. So there's a little bit more regulation on top of that so that price gouging doesn't happen. That could help us in the healthcare system as well. So I'm all on board with Travis's idea about that being government run because of the price gouging system and how we leave people on the side when they can't afford it. So
what we're going with, Jacoby, is Travis tried to out-left me, and he did so successfully that you've agreed with him. Good work. I like it.
It's not about see, we've got to get out. We talk about getting out of these labels. No.
Just relax. Just calm down. Just relax.
I'm just.
All okay.
But
it's okay. You'll be okay.
Lord.
Right.
I get it, Shaq. You got the pineapple shirt on, and you want to be able to be fruitful today. But again, all I'm just saying is, I can agree with Travis.
Yeah,
the only time you have is when he outlifted me.
It wasn't about being left or right. It's about having a good, smart position.
But I think the one thing you said might not be totally factual, because I think, if I remember correctly, some of our garbage disposal companies are actually privately run and everything. They might have a contract with the government, but I think that, like, the ones that do the picking up here in Durham, that they are actually privately run and everything. I don't think that they are government.
I think some are and some aren't. And Travis said to me, you can actually opt out of it in Western Australia. So, but it was an example to sort of highlight my point. There's a lot of things that we're forced to pay for.
Right.
We're not allowed, in some cases, where we're not allowed to opt out of it. I was just trying to use an example. If you own a holiday house, and especially the people that live in the northern states of the United States, they often, during the winter, what do they call them, snowbirds or whatever, they fly down to the warmer climates in the southern states. They've got holiday homes, things like that, or people have holiday homes in California where the weather is always fantastic.
I think that's what you're doing. And just really quick, because we are ready to wind up and everything, that's the whole conversation. That can be a whole nother show, and I'd love to hear Travis's thoughts on this, because I don't know. I'll say the things I don't know. I don't know how the Australian penal system is, but I know that here in the United States, that's been one of the conversations, even around the prison systems, because there is a push to have privatization of the prison systems, and I don't know if that's something that's going on in Australia, where there are companies that are running prisons.
I can tell you, because I used to, as you know, I used to train police officers and corrections officers. In Western Australia, they've got one privately run prison. And if you happen to be unfortunate enough to get locked up in Western Australia, I would, not that I've ever been locked up in it, obviously, but I would highly recommend that you go to the private prison, because it's better food, it's, better TVs, it's just better conditions the whole way around. It's a much nicer prison than the government-run one. What I am very concerned about in the US is the industry. Okay, you've got insurance companies that are making a fortune out of bail bonds. You've got bounty hunters that have got the ability to do things that is just incredible. They kick your door in and all this stuff. It's absolutely incredible what licensed bounty hunters are able to do. Then you've got this prison complex. I think it's an absolute mess. So I don't think you've got to compare something to something. I think if you were to compare the private prisons in Australia, some of your prisons are run by the same company, by the way, but if you compare what we do in Australia, compare it to what's happening in the US, it's just worlds apart.
And just to point out, that actually is a prime example of not everything needs to be for sale. And that goes into the whole government regulation over the public utilities. Because, for example, our private prison system, as you pointed out, is an industry now. Our biggest thing that we produce in this country right now is prisoners. So, we have in terms of percentage wise, we have the highest percentage of people or population in prisons. It's just ridiculous how our prison system is run, and it's based on money, and that becomes a sale. So if you do the similar thing with a public utility,
same thing in the UK and Australia.
No, I'm saying that we agree that our private prison system in the States is trash. It is actually an industry, and it actually has bounty hunters and something, so on and so forth. We just agree on that. That's against privatization of the prison system, which everybody should be against, because it's an industry. And that goes into the point of the government. You just said that you were against the private prisons. Now I said that we can agree that we're against the private prisons.
That's why I've interjected. It's not the privatization in of itself. It is the cottage industry that they've created where they can lobby government, etc. The government needs to step in. It's not the private running of the prisons in and of itself that I think is the problem. Because if it was a problem, we'd see the same problem in Australia, in the UK, and elsewhere, where oftentimes it's the same company that runs over there in the US. So I don't think I don't think you're going to find a solution just by taking it back.
Okay, just to point out, you said there's one private prison system and that you're worried that it may become like the U.S. private prison industry.
No, I never said that.
Okay, so you believe that you need more government regulation over a private prison system. Why? Because you're afraid.
I'm not going to argue with you semantics.
It's not an argument. I'm trying to get clarification because I tried to state your argument.
I'm clarifying it for you.
Okay.
I'm saying to you that I don't think the solution to issues in the US with what is clearly a very problematic system, I don't think the solution is to simply put it back into public hands, into government hands. I think the solution, much the way that I talked about with healthcare, is to have government intervene into this market, okay, and for them to set out better rules and perhaps to limit the amount of lobbying that they can do so that they can't just bully and buy off politicians. What you need to have private prisons is you need to have the sort of prisons that we have in Australia and the UK and many other parts of Europe, as opposed to the industry that you've got in the US.
The private prisons make money off of having prisoners, correct? Yes. So having prisoners is what the private prison wants. It becomes an industry. You still not said anything about the government regulation around bounty hunters, the bail bondsmen, and all the other things that private prisons live off of by bringing prisoners into that system. So if you're saying, let me finish. Now, if you're saying that only regulations and making the prison a little bit better by having, better facilities for the prisoners will make the private prison system better and it would stop the actual private prison industry, I disagree, because the private prison industry is based off of selling prisoners to the prison. That is what the actual industry is built off of.
That's your view, and with respect, I don't agree with you.
Okay, you can disagree, but I don't understand. Okay, explain to me how a private prison makes money.
Okay, I'm not playing this game.
It's not a game. It's not a game. It's a private prison system, and they make money off of prisoners. That's how they make money.
Jatovi, I'm not going to have you ask me a series of questions in order for you to elicit responses that are simply going to back up your point of view. With respect, we just don't agree on this issue, okay? We just don't agree on the issue, and it's perfectly okay for two reasonable people to have different views. Okay?
I agree, but the thing is, when I ask you questions, don't get upset because my answer is trying to point out a flaw in your argument. Because again, you just got to.
And Shaquille, hold on, we can get to this discussion another time. I think Rick had a quick point you want to make, and then I've got something I want to ask.
You guys have covered what I was
going to say. Then we're going to end the show and everything. But Rick, you had a point you want to make.
No, these Jatovi and Shaquille have covered what I was going to say about the U.S. prisons.
Okay, cool.
You might as well tell us what it was that you were going to say, though, so we know what your
what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that lobbying is a huge problem, that when you try to do prison reform in America, the prison guard union is able to contribute millions of bucks to defeat referenda in California. It's a bunch of people are supported, and billionaires, make money off of the prisons, and the money people spend on lobbying comes back to them fivefold in legislation that either fails or gets passed in their, it's money spent on buying politicians is well spent. You get it back many times.
And this is the problem with not just California, but with the US with a lot of its programs. So, for example, California has one of the highest expenditures on dealing with the homelessness issue. And I saw an interview recently. I'm not sure how old the interview is. I think it was Vice that did the interview, where they interviewed a former lieutenant or captain or something in the police over there. And he said, this problem's never going to end because we've got all these organizations that are receiving massive grants from the government to end homelessness, and yet there's been no decrease in the rate. And this is, of course, the problem when you have companies that have these private-public partnerships or some other type of arrangement with government. So that's why I'm saying when it comes to electricity, prisons, healthcare, anything else, yes, we should have perhaps government involvement and interference into these markets, but we have to be very careful about making sure that the companies that we partner with don't then have the ability to lobby or to, somehow change the views of and distort the views of the legislature. That's not healthy. And I think we just have to make sure there's safeguards. And I think the United States, being something which is a much more capitalist country, a more sort of right-wing free market capitalist country than many other countries, this is some of the problem. But again, the solution isn't to then become, socialist Europe. I think the solution is to look for a middle ground based on the existing infrastructure and the existing way that things work in the US.
So basically have in the no bid contracts and have government regulation on top of whatever contract it has. Exactly what I said from the start.
All right, Jatovian, good work. Happy Thanksgiving. You get to walk away. You are once again Mr. Incredible Professor. Happy Thanksgiving, buddy. I hope you enjoy
with Travis. Travis was the one that had the idea.
Well, you know what I think about Travis.
You and Travis go back and forth and everything along those lines. Travis, before we get out of here and everything, I just have to ask you, because it's been bugging me. Well, two things. One, I'm going to mention that I'm still shocked around the whole prison discussion that there are still, in this day and time in the 21st century, I don't know if y'all still got them in Australia, but here in the States, we still got chain gangs. So you can literally still find people that are traveling, the prisoners, in the vans and going to do road work and a number of other works. And this is still going on in the 21st century. I thought we would have moved on from that by now, but it is still actually that you can run across them. I've seen them in North Carolina. I've seen them in other places as well. So I'm shocked that it still goes on. I don't know if y'all got them in California, but they still got the prisoners that are doing
road
work
crews.
that other folks
You
don't
put
want
on
to
the
necessarily do.
orange jumpsuit and you pick up garbage by the side of the highway.
Exactly. Those are the ones I'm talking about.
Well, hang on. There's a
There's
difference
a very
between that
good
and
British show, I think, called Outlaws, which is adventures had by a crew of prisoners cleaning, doing cleanup.
There's a slight difference between that and a chain gang, which is what you originally started with, Mark.
My understanding is chain gangs where they're all.
Maybe they're not the actual old-fashioned version of chain gangs.
Well, can I just make the suggestion to you that if you think this is not appropriate for the United States in this day and age, can I just make the suggestion that you guys catch up on a few other things? Like, for example, the metric system, instead of miles and inches, and Fahrenheit. I mean, this is so 400 years ago, guys. I mean, come on, catch up to the rest of us now.
So just regarding the question about chain gangs, no, we don't have chain gangs. We don't have them tied together. They're not breaking rocks and making roads, stuff like that. So it's a part of a rehabilitation system. So when I was running a roof tiling contract, that people just don't want to do roof tiling. It's 40-degree heat. It's really hard to get workers. So what happens with the minimum security prisoners? They get the option to spend some time actually in the yard or with other people doing manual labor, doing work. It's an option for the prisoners that they're not forced into it. They actually do get paid. As a contractor, the government actually paid me to pay them. So they had a pay packet. I paid income tax for them and all that sort of stuff. Out of that money, they'd pay their fines, court dues, paperwork, and all that sort of stuff. So it was a totally voluntary system. And a lot of times they had work, because when, let's say someone's been in jail for 5 years, they've got no work history. So it makes it really hard to get a job. So what happens is that part of this so-called chain gang is to get them work experience for when they actually do apply to get a job when they're out of jail. So a lot of those systems are actually about rehabilitation, not actually about, hey, you've been a bad boy, go to jail and, break some rocks, whatever.
Was the wages, when you say you pay them, were the wages at the normal, here's the term, the normal union rate, or was it below because they were prisoners? Because there's what's funny? Jobs where you only have to pay them for $3 an hour or whatever.
No. The government I didn't have to pay a cent. The government paid everything. So labor at that time on the roof was $6 an hour. This was in 2000. So that was a fully qualified labor.
But they're still receiving what a non-convicted per, I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, it was the same wage. There was no difference in the wage. So about the only difference was I actually got a bonus on top. The more people I hired, the more money they gave me to actually hire these guys. And it was really, really interesting. So just going back to the prison system question about how bad the Australian prison system is, I don't think it's that the prison system is a bad system. It's just overcrowded, because when you have a look at per capita, we've got a really high homeless rate at the moment. And a lot of, especially in the northern communities, a lot of the Aboriginal communities, it's actually better to be in jail because you get Medicare, you get food, you get looked after, you have a shower, you've got a bed to sleep in. Where if you're not in jail, then you're sleeping in an alley and piss and urine, and there's alcohol and drugs and all this other stuff. There's no food for you to eat. You go scab everything, and every day's a life or death battle just to survive. So what happens is a lot of these people turn around and go, you know what? I stink. I need a shower. I've got my hip hurts for where I've been stabbed by someone. So let's go beat up a little old lady so I can get put into jail for 6 months. So that way I can get the free medical, I can get some food, and I can get whatever. So the prison system is actually a symptom of much greater problems in society. So, and this is one of the points where you actually got to have a look at why. Why is someone in jail? Why did they break that law? And there's so many more pressing issues. And I said on the last week's show, a lot of these people feel desperate because they don't have the education level to be able to go out and get a job or look after themselves. They just don't know how to do this because, A, they're not taught it at home. They're not taught it at school. The whole entire education system is failing. And because the education system is failing, these people are turning to crimes and drugs and whatever. And unfortunately, the end result of that is jail. So
unless I've missed something, Travis. When you said how high our rate was, I thought it can't possibly be higher than the US. So I just looked it up, and according to Wikipedia, our rate of homelessness in Australia is actually more than double the rate. It's almost 3 times the rate in the US. Which
think about this one. In WA, we have 2.7 million people in all of WA. There's about 2 million in Perth, and we've got over 70,000 people homeless just in Perth.
Oh wow. I didn't know it was that high in Australia.
It's bad. It's really bad. So with our units, while I was going through the renovation process of it, obviously there was no tenant in it. Daily, we had 5 or 6 people coming up to us saying, hey, once you finish, or even now before it's finished, can we move in? We'll pay you rent. And so generally for every $100,000 that a house is worth, you get $100 a week in rent. So let's say you got a $300,000 house, it's roughly about $300 a week. People were offering us double and triple that just to get a house. Like, it's insane. And then the biggest problem on that one, if the flip side of that, the local council who gives the approvals for building houses and all that sort of stuff, there's so much red tape that you got to go through to try and actually build a house. It's insane. So it's the government's our worst problem in this one.
I'll tell you what's absolutely absurd about what you just said. Looking at the Senate Housing Committee's homeless fact sheet in California, they've got just over 160,000 homeless people in California. Mm-hmm. We have, based on what you just told me, 70,000 in Western Australia. Now, the population of California, last time I checked, was about 40 million. So if you multiplied our homeless by 20, that would be the equivalent of California having a 1.4 million homeless people. I'll tell you, that doesn't sound right to me. That sounds just dramatically high. But if those are the numbers, that's a real problem. And yet
we're bringing in an extra 120,000 people. But the thing is,
but the immigration thing's out of trouble. What's our plan?
1.2 million people. But it goes even further than that. So assuming that there's 4 people per house, or 1.2, so that's 300,000 houses are required for that 1.2 million people. There's only approvals for about 50,000 houses. That's not including natural birth rates and all that sort of stuff.
They're bringing 1.2 million people into Australia, not into Western Australia.
Over 2 years into Australia, they've only approved Australia-wide 50,000 houses.
Yeah, but they're bringing it to Australia. But we're talking about Western Australia, though, right?
This is Australia-wide figures here.
What's the government planning on? The 70,000 number that you gave us was a Western Australian number, correct?
That's just WA.
That's just WA. What's the? Forgive me because I've been travelling the whole year. What's the government planning on doing? Is there any sensible suggestions coming out of either party over there?
Commonwealth Housing Plan that the Greens put forward, they wanted 50,000 extra houses. So that's 100,000 total. But yet we need 300,000 just for the immigrants, extra immigrants. That's not including normal immigration. That's the extra immigration into Australia. That's not taking into account natural births, kids moving out of home and all that sort of stuff. Because obviously you've got people passing away, houses get sold, and then kids move out of home. The natural population is just generally increasing.
Travis, before we end, because I had a quick question for you and everything.
They talk about putting a higher tax on superannuation investments into property. But let me ask, because I don't know anything about Victoria for very obvious reasons. I'm not a lefty like you are. What's going on in Victoria? It must be even worse with all the chemicals.
No idea. It changes nearly on a daily basis. I don't think Victorians know what's going on in Victoria. Like, and that's not me trying to joke. They come up with these bills that passes Parliament, and then they retract it, and then they put another bill in, then they retract it, and it literally changes day by day.
Hey, Travis, just really quickly and everything, and then, like I said, we're definitely getting ready to wind down and everything. But Travis, one of the things I was curious about here in the United States and everything, there, particularly during the pandemic, a lot of places became empty, and we've also seen growth. So now people are asking, with the growth, why there are, well, one, why are you building the buildings? Because you haven't filled the buildings that you already have and everything. So I was wondering if that is a similar problem in Australia, because there are a number of buildings that are not
Absolutely
at capacity.
No, absolutely not. On the commercial property side of things, so let's say you small businesses, little corner delis, yeah, there's vacant shops everywhere. But on the residential housing side of things, no, there's. So to put it into perspective, the reason I'm looking at Geraldton at the moment, that's where our units are up for sale. So the suburb that we're in, it's called Rangeway. There's now, because we put 2 houses up for sale in that, so there's now 3 houses for sale in all of Rangeway. In all of Geraldton, a population of 35,000 people.
Too much personal info.
There's only 14 houses total for sale. That includes units, property, acreage, land, farmland, business, a country town. Like all of it, there's just, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. So the house next door to us, unfortunately, the awesome lady living next door to us fell over, broke her hip. She's now in a home, so the family sold the house. They opened that for inspection. So one house, it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom. It's a tiny, tiny house. They had over 150 people turn up to try and put in applications to rent this house because there's just nothing out there.
Well, yeah, y'all have the opposite problem and everything.
This is one of the issues that is happening now, which sort of lags a little bit behind the US on this issue. We are being told that we are going to have, as Travis said, 1.2 million immigrants into this country over the next 2 years. I would dare say the majority of this country these days, especially in Sydney, are immigrants, right? Or everyone's an immigrant, but they're more closely, they're first generation, second generation, stuff like that. And they're like, no, we don't want immigration. You know what it is? It's not because we're a racist country. It's because the majority of people right now are really struggling. For all the reasons that Travis just said, it's not just the high grocery prices, the high cost of fuel, but the biggest one is the high cost of housing. People just can't find somewhere to live. And you've got people who are on the pension who have actually worked their whole lives. They don't have super because they were too old for that, who are relying on a pension, which is not very much. And all of a sudden, their rents are going up from, $250 a week to $420 a week on their renewal. Where's that money supposed to come from? So they then start to say, look, I don't think it's a good idea for us to bring all these immigrants in. And then the people on the political left start saying, well, you're racist, you're racist, you're racist. It's like, well, no, we're not. I feel that that's a big part of what sometimes happens in the US.
But you feel along those same lines, and I'll just give an example. There is a lot of rents that have gone up here. Then it was definitely during the pandemic that we saw rents, but one, they were capped, like they didn't allow, you didn't have to pay rent because of the COVID and everything, but people knew that they would eventually have to pay and everything. So then when the tenants or the apartments started going after them, they were, they still hadn't caught up. So they were in a bad situation. Like this apartment complex that I'm in, it probably has a significant amount of people that are, a significant amount of apartments that are not occupied. I'll just put it that way and everything. So there are a lot of empty apartments, like I said, and there's a lot of building because Durham, North Carolina,
I'm not sure how this is related to my comments.
Area. So that's why people are confused because they're like, how can you create all of these new houses when you haven't even filled the houses that you've already got? And then there's a lot of judicial things that are going on in terms of people not giving the support that they need. Because I've got some friends.
Once again, I'm not sure how that relates to my comments on immigration.
Yeah, it's the total opposite problem in Australia.
People in the US, when the housing market was a lot tighter and prices were going up, and under Trump's years, where the economy was doing reasonably well, there was a low unemployment rate. People in the US started becoming more vocal about having a somewhat anti-immigrant stance. And I'm just pointing out to you that anti-immigrant stance is not always because of racism. It could also be for the reasons I've just highlighted, where sometimes the cost of living is going up so much more that people are struggling and they don't want to see that further exacerbated by bringing new people into the country. Now, you're
No, I
saying
was just
there are
making
empty
to
apartments in North
answer your
Carolina.
question. I was just trying to make
You're saying there's
parallel and everything.
Carolina.
Ironically, this particular apartment complex is actually managed by Hispanics.
Mark, you're saying that there's empty apartments in North Carolina. However, we know that the prices in New York, in LA, etc., have gone up through the roof. We know that those states, for example, are struggling to find enough places to house the immigrants that have come across the southern border, a lot of whom don't have work permits. New York is talking about building a tent city, or they have built a tent city, etc. So I'm not really sure that there is enough housing to house all of the people who are homeless. And if there is, I would say that's probably the type of housing that's too expensive for all these immigrants and all these homeless to actually occupy in the first place.
The only thing I would say to that is part of the argument. I don't know that Travis agrees or disagrees. I don't really know, because I don't know that well and everything. But that is part of the argument, is that people are frustrated when they see empty spaces, and they are part of those groups that are facing either eviction or facing homelessness or a number of other things. And they're going like, well, how come y'all can't give me this house at a discount, and all along those lines? So that is the frustration that I hear from some of my housing advocates.
There's a property, Travis, on Jutland Parade in Dalkeith that has been for sale for 4 years, right? And actually, there's another one at Mosman Park, which is a better property. They want about $35 million for this property. It's gorgeous, by the way. But so because it's sitting empty, what we should do is say, well, hey, look, it shouldn't sit empty for all these years while you're trying to sell. We should just invite Perth's homelessness. There is that.
The owner can do what he wants with it because it's his house or her house. So just to put it into, sorry, I've got some stats for people here to understand it. So normal vacancy rate for houses in Australia is generally between 2.5% to 3.5%. So this is the rental market, not the actual houses which people live in, like holiday homes, things like that. So in August this year, it dropped to 0.6%. So there's just not enough houses. And when you bring the immigration into it, like by bringing more people into the country, it's not so much also the houses as well. So all of our schools are at absolute capacity. Our hospitals are at capacity. All the social services are at absolute capacity, because a lot of the migrants that are coming in, we have quite a few people coming to Australia on asylum visas. Mm-hmm. So what happens is they'll get a holiday visa. They don't like jump borders or come across in the boat. That's really, really low. That's not our main source of immigration. What happens is they'll get visas into Australia as like a holiday or whatever, a working visa. Their visa will expire, then they'll go, oh, asylum, I can't go back, I'm going to get killed. And then we have to shelter them and look after them, work out who they are. And generally during that time period, they've destroyed all their ID. So we can't give them asylum until we actually find out who they are. So a lot of the times these people, unfortunately, sit in detention centers until we can actually identify them. And the biggest problem, we get a lot of Middle Eastern people doing this. And so what they do is that, let's say I'm an asylum seeker. I've been here on a holiday. I've run away. I refuse to get on a plane. I've destroyed all my identifications, and then I get picked up by immigration. So they put me into asylum. They scan my fingerprints to get an ID. They ask me who I am, and I say I'm Joe Smith, and I was born in Iran. So what happens, they take all my details, they send it to Iran, and Iran's like, you know what? I'm going to be annoying. We're not going to answer. So a lot of times they'll sit there for 4 years, 5 years, without Iran answering. Then all of a sudden we find out they're actually from Pakistan. They're not from Iran in the first place. So we've just had to look after this person for all this time without actually knowing who they are. So that's one of our biggest problems, is it's really hard to identify a lot of our migrants into Australia, especially the ones that claim asylum, because they get rid of all their personal identifications. And you can't just jail people for life. So we've just had a high court ruling on that one.
I understand that and everything. Yeah. And even to come back to what Shaquille was saying, like I said, I've got friends that are in this space, and the parallel I was trying to make was that, and I don't know that, like I said, I'm just meeting you over these last couple of days and everything, but you can see where people that might be going for different services, and maybe they're going for government services, maybe they're going to their church and everything, where they can be frustrated when they are not getting the kind of support that they think that they should be getting from different agencies and different people that are supposed to be in that space. And that's what I was going in the conversation. I don't know whether that's the same thing in Australia, but if you are, having your rate constantly hiked up because we're out of the pandemic supposedly and everything, and I understand free market and everything, so you are that maybe say you're paying $700 and then it goes up to $1,400 and you were not able to afford that. I mean, Sessions oftentimes talks about how in the United States people can't get $4,000 to pay their bills and everything, and then there is this notion of these empty spots, even in the places that you're living in. You can understand why somebody might get a little bit on the frustrated side, and that's the only point that I was trying to make to Shaquille and everything was that is the problem that exists here in the United States, and it's definitely in big cities like New York. I got friends and relatives up there, but it's also in smaller cities like Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah, so it's our problems. It's kind of interesting listening to that California have house like entire buildings vacant because we would. I hate to say it, we would love that because first of all, it will help if there's available property. Our houses in Geraldton, 5 years ago we purchased both houses for the $35,000 each. So we've put them up on the market for $420,000 for both of them. So the increase in value, like the property in Australia, is massively inflated. It's no, I personally I feel they're probably a $250,000 like for both, not each. It's just everything is massively inflated, and I get what Shaq says. You can't just go, oh, let's rip all the value out of the market because you don't know a lot of people, but you can't let it just run wild. I think there needs to be a gradual relaxing on red tape. We need to be able to build houses again, to have houses for people. Like and the other thing is like building granny flats into the backyards of people's houses. That's a very, very easy way to alleviate a lot of this housing issues.
The investment property I have in Sydney has actually both of our properties have granny flats attached to them. But the granny flat, Mark, it's like for lack of better words, it's like a small apartment off to the side of the house. It may not necessarily be an upstairs apartment. It's like a small 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom place, which is great for students and young people that are just starting out. But what I will just say, I think it is worth noting that although, Travis, I agree with you, or I always agree with the cutting of red tape, but I think that people also need to recognise that that there is a big part of the community that benefits enormously from this critical housing shortage because their property prices are going up through the roof. And they don't want there to be more building approvals. They want the red tape because the red tape helps them because property prices going up.
There was a real interesting article, I think it was in The Australian about 12 months ago, that was going through all the people that own houses in Australian Parliament. And the people, you'd think it'd be the Liberals that own all the houses, but one of the Labor guys had 88 houses that he rented out.
Oh,
so I'll have to go hunt it down. It's one of the backbenchers. But there was a whole heap of Labor people, like Albanese, I think he's got 32 houses. Malcolm Turnbull.
Albanese's got 32 houses.
Yeah.
How the hell did he acquire that on a ministerial wage?
Who knows? He probably did something back in and stuff and everything. Do y'all do a lot of, and then like I said that ages ago, but do y'all do a lot of flipping houses? Because that was something that was very big, and I actually had a guest on that long ago, where people will buy houses and renovate them and then sell them at a different price and everything. So do y'all do quite a bit of that? Travis and I are going to make
absolutely no comment. We will neither confirm nor deny the allegation.
Well, you could say I've been doing a 5-year flip. So it used to be really big, but then they changed all the stamp duty regulations on it. So that kind of it didn't freeze the market. People still do it, but again, you've just got to know the laws that are in place, especially around the tax side of things, and just work according to those laws. So it's still an industry. People still make money off it. Like I know people in Geraldton that do it because they're the fibre houses up there. They're very easy to repair, very easy to renovate. Like you can literally flip them in 2 weeks. So there's a lot of people that do that sort of stuff. And they make good money out of it, but they also pay an absolute fortune in tax. So it's just one of those things.
And also
that's one of the things that then leads to a shortage of decent housing, because you've got properties that with just a little bit of work could be done, but because the government has then said, well, I'm going to tax you here and then here and there, the people are like, well, it's not actually economical for me to do that anymore. So I'm not going to bother doing the place up, and the place sits there and it rots, and etc. Again, a lot of this can be changed by government.
Government can be changed on a lot of things. Hey, Travis, just really quickly before I hit this magic button and everything in that space, because it's been bothering me all along, and definitely Shaquille had told me about some of your country music, like love and everything. So I'm guessing Dead Set Legend might be a group that you are a part of and all along this line. So I was going like, what the heck is a Dead Set Legend and everything? So this has been bothering me all show long. I'm going like, I've got to ask Travis this. What does Dead Set Legend mean?
We could actually set up a band called Dead Set Legend. I love it.
Well,
But just so you know, what you've just said is going to be going viral across the Edge radio tomorrow.
No
So,
problem.
just so you're aware of that.
No problem.
So what it is, a Dead Set Legend
I
is
don't
just
think you
someone.
should tell him. I think you should just let it hang. Just don't explain it to him.
No, please
I
explain.
think what you need to do is Urban Dictionary it, because it's just too funny. But no, I was in a band. I've been playing guitar since I was about 4 years old. So I was in a band that was called Crash Kills Tree.
Mhm.
So there was three of us, me, my brother, and one of his mates. We were a punk band. And the first album, like EP that we released, I think we sold like 3 copies. Like, that's not a joke either. Anyway, so it was a hand-drawn CD cover, and there's like a car crash, and the car hits the tree. The tree snapped in half. The tree's gone up into heaven, and the 3 of us are dead in the picture, and we've gone down to hell because we murdered a tree. So, yes, I once was in a band. I was like 14 maybe or 15 at the time, but you got to remember, like, one of Australia's greatest musicians, Silverchair, with Daniel Johns, he was only like 13, 14 when he toured the world. So he had to have security, bodyguards every time he goes to the toilet because some old woman tried to abduct him. And like, yeah, Australians
like
are
only
weird.
16 when she
Travis,
got
tomorrow,
discovered and
can you go
everything.
out, please, and register that name, Dead Set Legend.
Wasn't
Dead Set
Olivia
Legends
like only
as a
16 when
band
she got
name. We're
discovered?
going to do a tour of the US. We'll come out on stage. G'day, we're Dead Set Legends.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Wasn't Olivia like only 16 at that time?
Oh,
Did she
we
get-
can't. It's already a band in Sydney.
Is it Dead Set Legends?
But was Olivia like 16 when she was discovered Shaquille and everything? Because I think she was a teenage prodigy as well. Olivia
Well,
Newton-John.
don't ask
one of
me.
y'all.
Travis is older than me. This is his sort of music, Olivia Newton-John.
Was Olivia Newton-John 16 or something, Travis, when she was discovered? I think she was fairly young.
Sorry, Daniel Johns was 12 when he released his first album. Olivia Newton.
Well, don't Google it. We can all do that. But see the difference between our 12-year-olds and yours. You know, you bring Justin Bieber in. See the difference in music quality.
Well, there's been some great music quality as well. Travis, but I'm really going to hit this button right now. I do have to tell you that my first introduction to punk music was that same alma mater that I mentioned earlier. As when I was at Marquette, I went to a house party and all along those lines. And to go to a house party that is a punk house party and be introduced to slam dancing as a young 18, 19, 20-year-old, to see a bunch of people running into each other, it was a scary
mosh pit.
cultural indoctrination, because I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute, what have I stepped into? Because literally I stepped into the party because some friends invited me as a college kid and everything, and I'm going like, these folks are running into each other. I don't get it, but I'm not sticking around for this party that much longer.
Apparently there was an incident in, I think it was Las Vegas, where there was a bunch of Aussies playing AFL, right, just against each other. And the local Americans were so taken aback by this, they called the police and like, look, there's an absolute brawl going on in the park.
Oh, no, it's just AFL.
And the police came down, and thankfully one of the police officers that actually lived in Australia for a long time, we went, oh no, that's not a brawl, that's just Aussies, that's a sport that they're playing.
That's just what they do and everything. But yeah, Travis, yeah.
Wait, I got a video. Sorry, just quickly, I got a video for you. Go watch that,
Right,
and then
let's watch this for the outro, and we'll jump off after it.
Can you please? It is AFL's biggest hits. So warning, it's for Americans. You guys wear padding, we don't. So please share that.
I'm gonna
Let
download
everyone.
it really quickly because there's a way that
Oh,
I can
can't
do
you
it
just-
quicker.
Oh, if you give me permission to share it, I can show you.
That's right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can do it. I've got it. I've got it up on my screen.
Yeah, I was going to do it the other way. But
I've
yeah.
got it on my screen, but I'm not sure if you want to play the whole thing. But
Oh, don't worry, they're just highlights, so I'll just go one after another. So some of these are insane. Oh, they're awesome. I love the AFL. It's the greatest sport ever. Better than rugby.
Okay.
bloody Western Australians.
Come on, Shaq. Are you putting it up?
Yeah, it's up.
Here we go.
Contest. Wow, 2 skippers. Handball over the top. Viney. Oh, bang! Just sat down. What a statement that is. Good looking.
big kick to Franklin. Well done, Ranso, closing. Oh, gee, that looks awful.
Oh, get up, you girl.
Shaquille, you asked me earlier, and this is kind of what my basketball team is known for. So this would be called getting in people's grills and everything. So literally, if you follow basketball, our basketball team is known for like literally being right on the 7-footer. It didn't matter whether they were 7-footers, and our guys were only like 6'1" or 6'2" or 6'3".
This is actually part of the sport, unlike basketball, where it's a foul. Like a lot of these are probably
No, that's legal.
Some are fouls, but some of them are perfectly legal.
So that one's perfectly legal. He ends up in the dig out there. It's called the bench. So he actually ends up in the bench.
Right.
So WCE West Coast Eagles. Yeah, your internet sucks, Shaq.
I know. I only pay $400 a month for the bloody thing.
There's another video called "What Is AFL." Especially for a lot of Americans who don't understand what AFL is. I don't know if you guys can put this up, but there's a second video for you. It actually explains because like that Buddy Franklin,
would say that's a fair bump, but if you
that guy in the red is actually 6'8".
Wanted into the shade. Bounces it. Oh, big bump on Gaff. Welcome to footy. And he bounced up like a rubber ball. The kid might go all right.
Needed to. Cameron knocked over. Ambrose coming one way, going down the other way. Players soar for GWS.
Two players with the ball between them, and they both.
It's one of the things is the harder you go in, the less you get hurt.
Ferocious here at the moment. The high side, setting up Maynard. Put one right in the guts from Ryan.
That's great work from the Eagles there too. Make plays to them.
Perfectly legal.
So the perfectly legal hit.
Yep. So was that one. The push in the back wasn't, but the hit was fine.
It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah. See how the number 20 pushed the guy
as well. So he got the cattle pulled in and clash of these too.
Kick wasn't too good.
Well, how's this
for
one?
Jester Market. Oh, he got one back from Wilson and collected him fair and square.
That was legal back there.
Goes
back
the
then.
pass. It's a good one. Oh, down he goes.
I know they've made this
And
game
this young
so
fella's played a great game. He copped the heavy
This is
one
how
that
it should
time.
be. We should go back to
Third
these.
is the favourite.
Oh.
One straight into opposition. A good hip and shoulder there by Sidebottom. Could easily have gotten a free kick. Andrews cops one too high.
The Eagles giving it away.
Get it and go. He's got Guelphy wide, but even wider and longer is Brown.
I think that was the best commentary ever. A good hip and shoulder. The bloke's name is Sidebottom.
Look at the huge hit, bravery from both players. They're both chucked up and playing now, but this is where they're getting the extra number, it feels like.
Bombers desperate for a goal here. Clever flick by Carlisle. Chapman ran into Young, and Chapman was up.
So that's illegal now because his feet's off the ground. That's legal. That punch wasn't.
Sire gets his first touch in the AFL, looking for a give and go with Sidebottom. Big hit.
Yeah, that was legal too, wasn't it? Yep.
That was perfectly good.
Andrews is down and
He's
he has
out.
not moved.
He was unconscious before he hit the ground.
Moved. Harris Andrews.
I reckon he was out before he hit the ground.
Wow, he was unconscious, you said? Travis?
Yeah. Watch this. Boom. Out.
He's turned his body. He's in some trouble there.
Yep.
He'll be right.
No, he was out for nearly 6 weeks. He broke
Was
his
he?
jaw. Yeah. That was
He's
not
out for
a
how
bad
long?
one. 6 weeks.
That's what I thought.
Taken by Ponzi Adley. Kicks it down towards half forward. Bounces
this
on
is
its
Ablett.
point. Charging in Guerra. Chapman is down. That really
Sorry, that
hurt.
one's Chapman. They've got 2 ball players. They look nearly identical.
Just a link. He is out cold.
Well, I'm still trying to
With the
figure out
Velcro
if,
cigarettes, they get the place in the back.
Watch this one.
if AFL is this intense, and it does look intense, even more intense than rugby, the only time that we ever hear of Australians in American football is when they become kickers and everything. So I'm trying to think of an Australian that was not
Sav
a
Rocker.
kick.
So I think we've shared some of our national sport with you. I think the only thing that's more violent is the ice hockey, but I don't think the ice hockey is more violent in of itself. I think it's just more dangerous, right? Whereas this, it's just like, yeah, here, bang, punch in the face, that's legal as long as it wasn't a punch in the back. I mean, that's kind of our sport. So,
Yeah,
all right,
y'all
let's wrap it up.
One last thing. There's AFL guy used to play for North Melbourne and Collingwood. His name was Sav Rocker. He's got the record for the longest goal of, I think it's like 78 or 79 meters. So the line on the AFL pitch is the curved one is 50 meters. He actually kicked it from the center square, the center of the field, all the way in. And he ended up playing for, I think it's Michigan. He was the kicker.
Yeah,
so
for the college Michigan team.
I think it is blue and yellow. Like their pants are yellow.
I've actually got the goal, so perhaps we'll finish it with this.
It's a huge torpedo when it spins.
It was absolute bullshit, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, it was insane.
Yeah,
most players can kick accurately about 45 meters, so this guy can kick it nearly double. And his brother was also a kicker as well, not quite as good, but yeah.
He said his brother was also a kicker?
Yeah. There was Sav Rocker, Anthony Rocker was his brother, and they both played for the same team.
All right,
By the way, folks want to know when you're back on again and everything, and they want to know if you're a Kiwi.
I'll go out on this real quick. Polar Knights, you're back again. Fantastic. No, he's not.
Oh, hell no. I don't root sheep.
I'm more of a Kiwi than him. All right, here's our last thing before we get off.
Lovely hand pass to Watson. The good doctor's pass is good to Rocker.
So he marked that about 65 out.
He's a long
There's no way he's going to kick it. No way, look at him go.
And it's a booming drop puck. What a kick!
So, Shaq,
I mean, if he wasn't a Collingwood supporter, if he wasn't a Collingwood player, it'd actually be, it would be really wonderful.
If he wasn't a what kind of supporter?
He was a Collingwood player. So it's, let's say, one of the most controversial teams.
It's the team with no teeth, and they have inter-family marriages. We call them incest yokels. So to put that into perspective,
they get to play their home game. If we have a final, generally speaking, the final is at the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
So they're basically considered like the West Virginia, if I can use the
no, hang on. So the thing with them is that where all the finals are actually at is their home ground. So they get to play on it every week or every 2 weeks. So that's why, and also the way that the way the draws come out just tends to favour Collingwood. That's why everyone enjoys it when they don't win.
So to that kick, to put it into perspective, that was an 82-yard kick.
Right, so almost the
he nearly kicked.
Professional football league.
Yeah, he nearly kicked. So think about it this way: if you're playing gridiron or American football, you do the snap to the -30. He can just kick a field goal every single time. Like, how do you defend against something like that?
But Travis and Nikhil, do y'all have these attempts to bring additional excitement into the sport and everything? Because I know one of the things that they're doing right now in the NBA, and surprisingly the Lakers are doing well, is they created this whole notion of an in-season tournament, as if it's not good enough that we have a regular tournament at the end of the year to determine the champion. So they're going to put together something called an NBA Cup to give like an in-between the season tournament. So it's like literally what they have created, and this is their first time doing it in the NBA, is a middle of the season tournament.
They've sort of started doing that with some of them, but I think what they've ended up doing is that's been more displaced by the addition, which I think is great, the addition of women into these sports. They have the women-only AFL, the women's AFL, the women's NBL, the women's rugby, etc. And I think that mops up some of that off-season viewership. So, but also remember that because our seasons run through the year now, for you guys, you're going into your winter, and for a lot of the US, the winter is really bitter and cold. Whereas, like I drive my convertible during the winter in Australia because I mean, when I owned the pub, Travis, I actually went 2.5 years without seeing rain.
So it's not hard.
Well, Travis and everybody, since y'all had that little bit of fun, before we go out, I will let y'all watch about a minute and a half of my alma mater having their season and everything.
Alrighty.
So let's watch this.
Roll to the rim with the best of them, can he? He can roll all the way to the rim, but really good in those short rolls. And Jones again. Reload for the number 1 team in the nation. Poland. Yes. Are you kidding me? What a weapon he is inside and out. He is making the most threes. What another great Sean Jones into the game. Sophomore from Columbus, Ohio. Muscles it up and in. Darrow with a rebound. They could run so much of their offense through their 5-guy, Iguodaro. He gets it back from Sean Jones and through the door. How cool must that be? Incredible. That was pretty incredible, too. Kolek, the lefty, whips a right-handed pass into the corner, and Cam Jones scores. Okay, about the angle of the entry pass, and that was a perfect angle into Dickinson right there on the McCullough feed. Iguodaro defended Marquette. Oh, what a feed. Kolek whips the dribble alive.
Right now, Marquette is making the passes they want, but Kansas can't do it on the other end.
Team going. Sean Jones with a drive and a finish.
Get something going on the offensive end here.
A spin by Sean Jones.
They're going to get you.
2 minutes by Kansas. Gold again. His second.
It's been a long time since Kansas hasn't been able to put the ball in the bucket.
Wow. How about a 15-foot shot put? Iguodaro into the paint, and he scores over. And that is as well. To Cam Jones. And he'll lay it in. Just a strong spin move.
Well, good result for Marquette. I'll just quickly say.
By the way, Ben Gold is from New Zealand, so he's one of those Kiwis I would talk about.
For anybody who likes basketball, you should definitely check out the FIBA 3x3 because it's a really quick, fun thing. It's like 10 minutes, it's over. And it's just, or 20 minutes it might be, and it's just like a really quick, fun, exciting thing to watch. So check it out, I reckon. I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and definitely recommended everything. So I'm going to hit that button, but yeah, a little bit of fun. Both of us got to show a little bit of our sports and everything along those lines. And I don't necessarily agree with what Sasha said. I thought we were having a good discussion, even if we didn't get to some of the other discussions and all of those points. But we're going to get on out of here. We'll not have World Edition tomorrow unless Shaquille decides to run it or somebody else decides to run it, because I'll be eating Thanksgiving turkey somewhere, namely at my mom's house and everything, and probably taking Friday off as well. But Travis, I hope to see you on possibly Friday and definitely on next Monday. And I'm lining up some guests. There's always something I agree with, something I don't. But we got fun conversations, and I do enjoy having you, just like I enjoy having Shaquille, despite what some people may believe about that and everything. But definitely hope to have both of you back on Monday. But we'll see what goes on with Nick, Kim, and Shaquille as to Thursday and Friday. But I know me personally, I'm going to be having some turkey with Mom and my brother and my 2 nephews.
Hey, Mark, just before you go, can you do me a favor? When you're having the turkey, can you just get a piece and slap someone with it? And
I'll try to do that just for you.
Don't say nothing, okay? So that would be awesome. All right. Cheers, Mark.
Take it easy.
Happy Thanksgiving, Mark.
Happy Thanksgiving.